Hi, welcome to RCSC Med Tech. We are an organization created with the ideals of raising the level of regulatory science. Our purpose is to help medical device manufacturers achieve state-of-the-art product design and global-level regulatory compliance. We're taking action to contribute to the design and development, verification, and validation of our customers' new product. Our experts have spent the last 15 years working to help medical device manufacturers and importers build better regulatory solutions. Our mission is to improve the manufacturer's capability to design and develop innovative, high-quality, and safe medical devices.
Today, we will talk about the clinical evaluation report required by China and the EU in the submission. The EU MDR requirement is relatively straightforward. All medical devices, when applying CE mark, will need to submit the clinical evaluation files. While NMPA categorized medical devices into different groups based on their risks, lower risk devices generally do not require clinical evaluation reports. Instead, the manufacturer only needs to compare the device under application with the equivalent devices approved in China. The higher risk devices will need to submit the clinical evaluation report if one or more equivalent devices are available with the preconditions, which must be approved in China. The complete technical documentation can be obtained legally by the manufacturer. If these requirements cannot meet, the manufacturer can submit the clinical investigation report to replace the clinical evaluation report. And this is a different concept. Under the EU MDR, the clinical study data is part of the evidence in the clinical evaluation report to demonstrate the device meets the requirements of the GSPR. Now let's focus on a requirement of equivalent devices. Under the EU MDR, there is MDCG 2020-5 guidance describe the conditions of the equivalence. In general, the manufacturer needs to consider technical, biological, and clinical characteristics when demonstrating equivalence to another device. And it gives an equivalence table listed all characteristics that need to compare. It looks pretty the same as NMPA's clinical evaluation guidelines. However, the clinical evaluation under the EU MDR needs to consider the state-of-the-art, the clinical benefit, all the claims, and the residual risks associated with the device. If there are equivalent devices, the required information of the MDCG guidance will be strong evidence to support the device's safety and performance by comparing it with equivalent devices. But if equivalence is not applicable, this section can be omitted. While under NMPA guidelines, the equivalence demonstration is a mandatory requirement. The manufacturer must have an equivalent device approved in China to compare. Otherwise, the only way is the clinical investigation. During the NMPA review of the clinical evaluation report, many reviewers will pay special attention to compare the device under application with the equivalent devices. And there must be evidence to support that the differences do not impact the device's safety and performance. The evidence could be clinical study data, literature data, real-world data, PMCF data, or non-clinical study data. And these are all the core elements of the China CER. Manufacturers do not need to consider CDP and CEP, state-of-the-art, particular claims, benefits, even residual risks because there is no strong connection between clinical evaluation and risk management. And it is not allowed to demonstrate equivalence if the manufacturer cannot legally obtain the technical, biological, and clinical characteristics of the other comparable devices. This is also why state-of-the-art is not applicable for the China CER. In summary, for the NMPA application, if you want to use the CER, the equivalence approach is the only way. If you cannot meet the prerequisites, you have to submit clinical investigation files. So far, we can see the whole concept is quite different between China and the EU about the clinical evaluation, although they have the same name. Again, let's take a look at the equivalence approach of China CER. This is an overview of the clinical evaluation workflow of China CER. For the first 3 steps, it is the procedure to compare and establish the equivalence and gather all supporting data to demonstrate that the device's safety and performance are not impacted. The last 2 steps are the data appraisal and analysis process to generate the CER. Now let's see another workflow, and right, that is the FDA's 510(k) decision-making flowchart. This workflow is quite similar to the first 3 steps of China CER. In practice, this part is weighted pretty high during the review. However, suppose you have data to support all the differences between the device under application and the equivalent device. In that case, the rest of the report will be much more comfortable, and the reviewer might even ignore the appraisal and analysis part. Now, we can conclude that the clinical evaluation required by NMPA is the combination of something like the FDA's 510(k) decision-making, plus essential literature appraisal and data analysis introduced in MEDEV 2.71 Revision 4. Late in 2019, the IMDRF issued 3 updated guidance documents, including clinical evaluation. Although China is the working group chair and led the clinical evaluation documents update, it clarifies and harmonizes the EU MDR guidance. However, the NMPA guidance currently only uses the equivalence approach still. So, the workflow here is not applicable for the China CER, because the supervision method of NMPA cannot harmonize the ongoing activities of the clinical evaluation. There is no risk management connection. There is also no specific requirements of periodic update or the PMCF yet. Based on all these, the China CER should be more accessible than the EU MDR's clinical evaluation requirements if you understand the different concepts. The only critical point is to get a proper substantial equivalent device.